This week we turn our attention to the environment and corporate culture in particular. Initially, we'll have a look at the external environment within which an organisation operates. Then we'll move on to what we call the organisation-environment relationship and how organisations might adapt to or indeed influence their environments, especially when they're in times of uncertainty. And then finally, we'll have a look at the internal environment and the corporate culture of an organisation in particular. Okay, the external environment. When we think about the external environment of an organisation, we generally speak about two levels of environment, the general environment and then the task environment. Within the general environment, we're talking about I guess that which directly influences all organizations within an industry and includes generally 5 dimensions. Firstly, technological environment, and that typically scientific and technological advances in society will impact that. Natural or environmental environment, becoming more and more important in today's day and age. Sociocultural environment or sociocultural dimension typically includes changes in demographic characteristics, norms, customs, and I guess the values of a population within which an organisation might operate. One of the more obvious ones is the economic environment. That speaks to the general economic health of a country or region within which a business operates. Then legal and political dimensions of the general environment, which speak obviously legislation and the likes that impact an organisation. And then finally, what's happening globally or internationally, the events in other countries that could well have implications for or impact upon what's happening within Australia. Now let's move on to the task environment. Now that includes the sectors that conduct the day-to-day transactions with the organisation and directly influence its basic operations and performance. And that includes obviously our customers, those folks that do business with us on a daily basis, certainly our competition, the people that we compete with in the marketplace, those folks that are those organizations that supply us and other business partners like suppliers, and then finally, but obviously importantly, the general labour market from which we draw to employ within our organizations. This, I guess, the words I've just talked through are really just give you a bit of an overview of the external environment as it relates to general and task environment for an organization. Obviously, when you read the additional materials and so forth, that will help develop your understanding of that. Also, wanted to talk about on the next slide is a video which speaks to each of the elements of the general environment and how organizations can and should scan their environment to ensure that they're in a position to either adapt to these changes or indeed influence these changes. Now, the headings in this video do vary a little bit from that which we have in the textbook, but they still cover each of these dimensions. Video runs for about 4.5 minutes. It is a US video, so it does speak to US specific issues, but with not much of a mental leap, I'm sure you can make the connection to Australia. All organizations face some degree of uncertainty. As we look at our current very much globalized world, it's easy to see how impacts, how changes in economies such as the Chinese economy will have impacts on the Australian economy, be it for the demand for our iron ore or for our coal and so forth, just as an example. We also talk about some of the other sort of natural impacts, the likes of volcanoes in Indonesia impacting travellers to Bali and the likes, or even a whole raft of others. But certainly in our ever globalized world, the level and the degree of uncertainty is significant. Now, the graphic that's on this page really just seeks to distinguish between levels of high and low uncertainty. and also speaks to the need for businesses that do find themselves faced with high uncertainty, that they must look to adapt to these, or indeed look to influence the environment themselves. Now, there's different ways organisations may choose to do this in terms of how they might adapt. The sorts of things business can do is obviously put in some planning processes to be able to predict what might be coming around the corner, so they've got a bit more clarity from an organisational planning perspective. Some of the other things that businesses might choose to do to try and adapt to, or perhaps lessen the impact of changes in joint ventures or strategic alliances with other organisations, perhaps even mergers if the threat is significantly high to the organisation. Other less formal partnerships that might well seek to reduce the boundaries and increase collaboration with other businesses, and other what we call boundary spanning roles that link us to key elements within the external environment. So they're just some of the ways an organisation might choose to adapt to the environment. In terms of how it might look to influence the environment, there's several ways we can do that. Advertising or public relations, often used by organisations to try and influence stakeholder opinions and their various publics. The second way is the use of lobbyists. That's the political activity through lobbying to try and influence perhaps legislation and regulation. And then finally, and very, very commonly, organisations might choose to be members of a trade or industry association, which speaks on behalf of the wider industry itself and can look to influence the environment, in particularly in times of high uncertainty. In the following slide, on the following slide, I have put in just a useful interview that speaks to some of the specific environmental challenges faced by the Australian economy at large, as well as Australian organisations. So it brings it a little closer to home. It runs for about 5.5 minutes. It's quite topical, quite relevant and contemporary, so I'm sure you'll be able to get some value from it, and also relate it to the discussion around organisation-environment relationship. Okay, we've spent quite a bit of time on an organisation's external environment. Let's now move our attention to the internal environment for an organisation. By internal environment, I'm talking about its material resources, organisational structure, its employees, and from this slide's perspective, most importantly, its corporate culture. And when we talk about an organisation's culture, we're talking about a set of key beliefs or values or understandings and norms that are shared by all members of that organisation. And the key is it needs to be shared. Organisations with strong, appropriate and consistent cultures like Zappos, like 3M, like Apple, like General Electric are held up as very, very successful, continually very successful organisations. And the key element of culture is seen as an absolute vital part of that ongoing success. So just as an aside, I think to my own career, I started my career many years ago as an engineer, and I have to say at the time I probably significantly downplayed the importance of culture in an organisation. I thought it was all about task. I thought it was about getting the job done. But as my career has advanced and progressed in taking general management, managing and directing roles within business, I've come to realise, perhaps a little later than many, that the importance of culture to the ongoing success of an organisation. So absolutely key key learning from a personal perspective, and I hope that you folks will take that on board early in your own careers. The importance of strategy in the first place is covered, as well as obviously execution, but in equal measure having a strong, appropriate to the organization strategy and appropriate to the organization culture, and obviously that culture needing to be universally understood and adhered to across the organization. Okay, the textbook will tease out some more details on culture, or speak to different types of culture that are relevant in today's day and age, and some examples. What I wanted to present on the next slide is Tony Shea from Zappos. You'll see there's a case study on page 95 and 96 of your text, speaking to Zappos as well. They're held in very high regard, particularly as it relates to their organization's core values and company culture. So I think probably the best way to talk through the issue of culture is to see a real life organization in action. So the video on the following slide runs for 8 minutes. Really worth a good look, and it really gives you an understanding of what organizations with strong cultures, the impact it does have in their business. Now, as you go through the other materials this week, you'll note I also have an Apple video in there on their corporate culture. I have another one on 3M, as well as that on General Electric, businesses that I've mentioned in the past with strong corporate cultures. So I think it's most appropriate to demonstrate that through the use of videos of that sort of the corporate culture in action. Okay, that's the mini lecture on environment and corporate culture for this week. Please don't forget to have a look at all the other on-screen materials, and obviously also read chapter 2 of your text and take copious notes. You'll also be aware that I've got some discussion questions online. There are 6 discussion questions that I think will be helpful to you to tease out your understanding of the concept. So you might want to go onto the forum there to discuss that with your with colleagues in this unit. There's also a practice quiz, 10 questions there that you might choose to undertake prior to taking the formal online quiz. There are 20 questions in the online multiple choice quiz, and this forms part of your assessment for this particular unit. So good luck, and look forward to speaking to you next week.